So a very good morning to you all. Welcome to your English 2 class. In this class, we'll be reading The Spider and the Fly, written by Mary Botham Howitt. Mary Botham Howitt was an English writer, author, who was very famous for his poem The Spider and the Fly. And it was actually published in the year 1829 when Lewis Carroll was preparing Alice's Adventures Underground, and he was preparing a parody he has made of the Negro minstrel, but he has replaced his parody with that of the parody of Mary Botham Howitt's The Spider and the Fly, and he named it The Lobster Quadrille. Okay, so this is quite a very famous poem, which is a fable with a moral to not only for the children but for all of us to learn a lesson form. And we will discuss the poem in detail, and we will find out what message it portrays. So without wasting further time, let us start this poem. So this poem was included in the collection named Sketches of Natural History by Mary Botham Howitt. So as we know, the society abounds in shrewd and wicked people who are lurking in darkness, ready to pounce upon the gullible when the opportunity is got. The poem conveys this cautionary message through the tale of a spider who cunningly lures the innocuous fly into his web. The poem was primarily written for children, to caution them to stay away from strangers. Later on, it applies for men and women of all age groups. That's why made for all. And it teaches us, like, a flatterer can never be genuine and sincere with his approaches, so we must be aware of him. The plot revolves around the spider who is hungry, who tries his best to trap the fly, and thus activates his forces of deceit and sets out to look for his prey. He once observes a fly and wants to eat her. To satiate his hunger, he employs numerous devices to beguile the fly and trap her in the web. So the fly initially resists his flattering words. Her faint wisdom allows her to see through the cunning tricks of the spider. However, in this power game, one has to win defeating the other, and the spider had to lost. The fly had to lose, and the spider was the winner. The spider asked the fly to visit his parlor, which he was readily, she just readily declines to enter that. He asks her to take some rest upon the little bed. The fly, wise enough to understand the wicked motives, politely refuses this offer. The spider, being extremely cunning, persists in his mission of trapping the fly into his intricate web. He uses deep flattering words to win over the fly. He asks her to take a slice from his pantry, but the fly turns down his invitation politely. Now, this makes the spider remark that the fly was indeed very witty and wise, continuing his plethora of compliments. He praises her gauzy wings and brilliant eyes. He gives her the opportunity to admire her own beauty in his looking glass. The fly thanks him for his polite gesture and bids him farewell. The spider, used to victimizing innocent creatures, knows the fly would return soon and sets his stable ready. He continues to shower praises upon the fly to entrap her as soon as he can. The foolish fly, deceived by the wily, flattering words of the spider, returns. The spider avails of this fleeting opportunity and jumps upon her, trapping her into his web of death. He drags her into his dismal den, and the fly is never seen again. This hints at the tragic end of the fly. The message that the poem conveys is very clear towards the end of the poem, and one should be careful enough to understand the psychology of others lest he falls into the trap. The fly should not have trusted the spider. That's why kids should learn a lesson from this poem and get themselves detached from the strangers who might have flattering words to allure the children, but the children should well aware of the deceptive and cunning nature hidden underneath their face. And this poem teaches a wonderful message not only to the children but to all of us. Now we will be discussing the poem stanza wise. So you are advised to open your book so that you can relate. So let us begin with the first stanza. Will you walk into my parlor? Said the spider to the fly. 'Tis the prettiest little parlor that ever you did spy. The way into my parlor is up a winding stair, and I have many pretty things to show when you are there. Oh, no, no, said the little fly, to ask me is in vain, for who goes up for winding stair can never come down again. So the poem begins with the conversation between the spider and the fly, and these are anthropomorphic creatures. So the spider symbolizes artful and crafty men, whereas the fly symbolizes the innocent and foolish people. Now the spider invites the fly to visit his parlor. Using exaggeration, he beautifies his den by calling it the prettiest little parlor. He tempts her by saying that the way into his parlor is through a spiral stair where there are many things worth looking at. He wants her to see all the pretty things his parlor consists of. The fly, comprehending the avaricious motive of the wicked spider, declines the offer, saying that she is aware of the fact that whoever goes up the winding stairs never comes back again. So the opening stanza gives us a clear description of the setting. The use of words parlor, winding stairs, curious things give the whole setting human characteristics. The purpose of the spider is distinctly conveyed here. He is hungry and wants to prey upon the innocent creature, the fly to satiate his hunger pangs. The spider here represents all duplicitous and dishonest men in the world who are crafty and artful in their nature, and they can go to any extent to pound upon their prey. So, and who entice and ensnare the incautious and innocent individual in order to entrap them for fulfilling their wicked wishes. Now next stanza. I'm sure you must be weary, dear, with soaring up so high. Will you rest upon my little bed? Said the spider to the fly. There are pretty curtains drawn around, the sheets are fine and thin, and if you like to rest a while, I will snugly tuck you in. Oh, no, said the little fly, for I have often heard it said, they never, never wake again who sleep upon your bed. The spider perfectly is aware of the impediments that may come in his way, so he is prepared to overcome all the hurdles in order to achieve his goal. Now he lures the fly into his trap with some captivating words that may attract her closer to his den. So he asked her to relax in the little bed, and he also said the walls are well embellished with pretty curtains, and the bed sheets looks exquisite and delicate, and she likes to accept the idea that he will pull her inside in a warm and comfortable manner, and that will give her immense pleasure. But the little fly, she was trying to keep all her vague wisdom as much as possible, and she rejects. She just refuses the little bit pretty curtains, fine and thin. Those phrases might sound very alluring, very tempting, very attractive, but the fly refuses. Okay, and however, her discrimination and the way she just had disinclination to accept his invitation thwarts his villainous idea of devouring the fly. As of now, the idea of devouring the fly is at hold. The third stanza says, said the cunning spider to the fly, dear friend, what can I do to prove the warm affection I have always felt for you? I have within my pantry good store of all that's nice. I'm sure you are very welcome. Will you please to take a slice? Oh, no, no, said the little fly, kind sir. That cannot be. I have heard what's in your pantry, and I do not wish to see. So the fly's repeated resistance troubles the spider, but he did not fail with his purpose of captivating the fly at any cost. The cunning spider addresses the fly as dear friend and asks her that she should not be afraid, rather she should come to the pantry and take a slice whatever she likes. And but the spider's inexorable insistence has a little cunning thought hidden behind every words he has used, and that somehow made the fly a bit afraid and quite set an alarm to this whole story. Now, ironically, the fly, despite being witty and wise, falls prey to his flattery in the end. Now, let's see what happens next. So, sweet creature, said the spider, you're witty and you're wise. How handsome are your gauzy wings? How brilliant are your eyes? I have a little looking glass upon my parlor shelf. If you will step in one moment, dear, you will behold yourself. I thank you, gentle sir, she said, for that you are pleased to say, and bidding you good morning now, I'll call another day. Now the spider showers intense praises on the fly because he has reached at the verge of his cunningness. So he calls her a sweet creature and appreciates her intelligence and wisdom. So he praises her, her wings and, shining, sparkling eyes. He asks her to step inside the parlor, admires her own beauty and enigmatic charm in the little looking glass. So she can step inside for one moment and behold herself in the mirror just to appreciate her endless beauty. Despite repeated invitation, the fly still resists the temptation of going inside. She does not allow the flow of flattery to enter her mind, and she refuses with utmost courage and grace. So she thanks the cunning spider for his appreciation. She expresses her gratitude to the spider for admiring her worth. However, refusing to be enticed and allured, she bids a good morning and departs. She promises to visit his parlor some other day and advances forward. However, we soon learn that the fly has not moved far and she will come and enter the spider's trap. Okay, so what stanza 5 says? The spider turned him round about and went into his den, for well he knew the silly fly would soon be back again. So he wove a subtle web in a little corner sly and set his table ready to dine upon the fly. When he came out to the door again and merrily did sing, come hither, hither, pretty fly, with a pearl and silver wing. Your robes are green and purple, there's a crest upon your head. Your eyes are like diamond bright, mine are dull as lead. Now, in this stanza, we will see the spider does not worry about the initial departure of the fly because he was quite sure he's going to fulfill his purpose very soon with his strong determination of captivating the iniquitous fly at any cost. So he remained calm and he tried to compose himself and he kept on flattering the fly. Okay, and kept on inviting her into his den. Okay, so the poet here realistically described the nature of the spider with detailed documentation. So the spider is a representative of all the impostors who patiently wait to beguile the inexperienced young individuals. You know, the spider is a prototype of contemporary cunning individuals who, by exercising power and controls over the innocent people, use them for their own benefits by turning them into the victim of their wicked means. Okay, and the spider thinks about his own profit and waves a subtle web and sets his dinner table for supper. With a complacent air, the fly comes out and sings a song addressing the fly. He praises her pearl and silver colored wings, green and purple robes, and magnificent crest upon her head. He valiantly exposes his flaw by criticizing the dull lead eyes and appreciating her dazzling bright eyes. So all these tempting words attract the unintelligent and witless fly. She eagerly gets drawn to the spider for long down flattery. Now she thinks the spider is exhibiting his unfeigned delight seeing her magnificent beauty and get stormed by this. Alas, alas, how very soon this silly little fly, hearing these willy flattering words, comes slowly flitting by. With buzzing wings she hung aloft, then near and nearer drew, thinking only of her eyes and green and purple hue, thinking only of her crested head. Poor foolish thing, at last up jumped the cunning spider and fiercely held her fast. He dragged her up his winding stair into his dismal den. Within his little parlor she never came out again. Oh my God, this stanza is quite an alarming one. So this is the triumphant moment for the spider. After being delayed and postponed consistently, the spider gets his prey close to him. He exposes his preconceived notion in believing that fly will surely come to his den, hearing his pretentious display of appreciation for her. The fly, despite initial reluctance and hesitations, finally succumbs to the fluttery of temptation. She comes slowly with a continuous buzzing noise. She is blinded by the enticing words used by the spider about her youthful beauty. She only thinks of her brilliant eyes, green and purple hue, crested head. The poet pities her poor miserable plight here. Finally, the spider jumps on her with all his might and holds her fast, dragging her helplessly into the valley of den, into the valley of death, that is the spider's den. The gloomy cell reminds us of the darkness of the modern world, where every day crooked and sinister men fool our helpless individuals and trap them into their intricate web. The helpless fly meets a similar tragic fate. Despite display of faint wisdom, the incessant compliments overpower her rational thinking, and she readily offers her as a bet to the impostor. She never comes out of the den, which forecasts her unfortunate death in the hands of the cunning spider. Let us read out the last stanza. And now, dear little children, who made this story read, to idle, silly, flattering words, I pray you never give heed. Unto an evil counselor, close heart and ear and eye, and take a lesson from this tale of the spider and the fly. So the last stanza ends with a moral lesson that the poet or the narrator addresses the beloved children who have little understanding of the complexities of real world, cautions them against paying attention to the pretentious individuals who claim to be genuine and wise. They can use ample means to entice the innocent victims into their pattern of the intricate web. They must not yield to the ostentatious flattery of others. There are many sly men roaming around in every nook and corner, waiting to pounce upon the intelligible, witless men and entrap them to suffice their own needs. The fly is not rational enough to distinguish between flattery and the genuineness, triggered by the spider's temptation to eat her and genuine praise and appreciation. Hence, she meets a tragic end towards the end of the poem. So it comes up with a very nice message that even if we get so many flattering words, we should not get enticed by those flattering words. We should have the insight present within us to have a proper judgment of the right and wrong one, because nobody is going to teach us when the real time will occur. So before this real time comes, this poem was a cautionary tale which tells us about the nature of this cunning men who have the intensity to beguile the innocent people whenever the opportunity is there. We should be smart enough. We should keep our ears and eyes open to find out the correct and the wrong one. So here the poem ends. The poem actually deals with a number of themes. Weakness to succumb to flattery and false praise. We all are weak. We all have weaknesses. we all are weak to something. So the poem is asking us not to feel weak of ourselves, and we should not succumb to the flattery and false praise. And next theme is different means employed by flatterers for their own advantage. So if the flatterer or the enticer, they will never have a good intention, and they will keep on repeating the same thing, putting it or mixing it up with lots of butter and cream, and they will keep on saying the same thing until or unless their purpose is solved. Exercise caution lest one should fall prey to susceptible flattery. We should be very vigilant, we should be very smart, and we should always have the vision within us who will guide us always to keep ourselves away from this this false and suspective deceptive people. Okay, so here are the three themes, and the title is very much suggestive, and it has all the elements present to be a successful title. The poem is more like a fable, as we know, it's a short story conveying a moral lesson with animals or inanimate objects as characters. The Spider and the Fly is obviously a fable, having two inanimate characters into it, teaching a lesson at the end. The poem is simple and straightforward with direct message conveyed to all. The poem is divided into 7 stanzas of varying length. The rhyme scheme is definite AABB. And the rhyming words like fly, spy, stare, there, vain, again help in continuity of the numerous episodes. And the spider uses archaic words such as heather, while the dialect of the fly is different from that of the spider. Okay, so here are a number of literary devices also. Repetition is there. Oh no, this phrase has been repeated by the fly every time she turns down the spider's invitation of visiting the den. Symbolism: the spider represents the cunning people who beguile upon the poor and innocent men. The fly is symbolic of the native and innocent individuals who easily fall prey to such enticing words and flatterers. Now, metaphors, subtle way metaphorically suggests a trap. Simile: your eyes are like diamond bright. So it's simile, very explicit comparison is made. Alliteration, little looking glass. So this I is L is common, and silly fly, L is common, and dismal den, this D is common. So these are the literary devices present in the poem. Now you have read this poem earlier many a times, but I'll again ask you to read out this poem to clear all your doubts. Even if you don't have, just read it out, for it has a very good moral message to convey. Okay, so we'll meet in the next class. By then, keep reading, keep practicing, and take care of everybody. Have a good day. Bye bye.